Charge, came a baby voice. Charge ahead, then came another baby voice. Two small children, real, small children, shouting like warrior, shot through Market Street, with little baskets on their heads for helmets. Short tree branches clutched like spear and sword. Their scream, like war cries, shrill and overloading with cuteness. As they charged towards were a group of soldiers feasting under a parasol, their table laden with glistening roast duck, shiny braised pork, and mountains of steam buns. Then, chaos met silence. Dia, can I have that meat bun? The laughter died. Every soldier froze. Even the wind held its breath. All eyes snapped to the twins, and then snapped to the man at the head of the table. The man, at the head of the table, wore a crimson armor, gold insignia on his uniform burning under the sun. He was the chief commander of the 4 army divisions of the Tang Empire, the Emperor's Hammer, a living legend. And my children, with reasons only the heaven knows why, had just called him Daddy. Then, before anyone could wrap the situation around their head, the twins started climbing onto the commander like little monkeys. Then they each snatched a meat buns like miniature bandits. Little Yenyen's cheeks puffed. Little Chocho's fingers glistened with sauce. It's sweet, Dia. Yenyen mumbled, mouth full, to the commander. These 19 men who'd seen 1,000 deaths, undone in a minute by 2 children who'd never seen fear. And I, watching from the edge of that breathless world, hadn't seen it coming. Hadn't seen how fate quietly rewrites itself, not with swords, but with breadcrumbs, and the laughter of 2 little hearts, who mistook a stranger for their father. Welcome to Mending Hearts. Slip on your earphones and ride back in time to a love story written beneath the skies of the Tang dynasty. One more thing. Dia means daddy in the ancient Tang era. Chapter 1. 2 years have passed since my Alpha rode west, beyond the frontier, and vanished into the dust. The wind from the western marches still smelled of iron when it blew through my courtyard, but his voice had long dissolved in it. For a while, the food provisions came, sacks of millet, stamped with his unit's seal, but each month they grew lighter, until one spring, the courier stopped coming altogether. At the magistrate's office, the clerk searched the scrolls and declared our records could not be found. It was as if the blood my Alpha shed defending our homeland had already dried and forgotten. I walked home through the market that day with empty sleeves, the wind full of fluttering war banners, standing tall and proud along the road. Looking at the banners, I wondered if the gods had forgotten us too. That same summer, the river broke its banks. The cornfields drowned beneath a skin of mud. I sold the last of our grain for my twins' fever medicine. The house smelled of damp straw and boiled water. The roof sighed and creaked when it rains. Neighbors passed our door with soft voices, as if pity itself might wake the ghosts that live here. At night, when the lamps guttered low, I unfolded the faded uniform my Alpha left behind. I whispered to it in silence, pretending he could still hear me. I breathed in the fabric. His Alpha scent long vanished, like a dream that no longer remembers you. Beside me, the twins, Yenyen and Chocho, stirred, their breaths thin and quick. I pressed my palm to their tiny ribs, counting the bones that still answered my touch. I listened to the hollow in their bellies, the price the Empire called honor. Because, when they woke, they asked for rice again, and I'd tell them, gently, that the pot was still cooking. That morning hadn't come yet. But the sun was already climbing, and I had no more millet left. I had scraped the last grains the night before, thinned the porridge with more water, then pride. Still, they drank it all before night fell. Once, I had stood proud beside my Alpha, General Wuxian, commander of the Northern Garrison. Back, when banners bearing his name flying across the ramparts, and soldiers straightened at the sound of his boots. Then came the last campaign at Yumen Pass, and he never returned. The rations stopped. Our names vanished from the registrar. This wasn't silence. No one helped. No one looked my way. That night, as the wind scraped the shutters of my windows, and hunger made my children's sleep restless, desperation hardened into a decision. But then, the first move toward change didn't make its mark. Guess who beat me to it? Chapter 2. The market stank of fragrant spices, deep frying aroma, and dreams beyond my reach. Steam curled like silk. Above the food stalls, oil hissing on frying pans, and my twin stomach growled. I had turned away for one moment, to ask the cloth merchant if he needed someone to tally his accounts, and the twins, who'd been playing soldier with short sticks only heartbeats ago, were gone. By the time I spotted them, they were already halfway across the square, little feet slapping against stone. Under a parasol, a group of armored soldiers sat around a low table piled with roast duck, pork chops, and mountains of steaming buns. Their armor clinked with every laugh. Before I could even shout their names, my twins darted forward and charged toward the man sitting at the head of table, and said to him, "Dia, can I have the meat bun?" The laughter died. Every soldier froze. Even the wind held its breath. All eyes snapped to the twins, and then snapped to the man at the head of the table. Before anyone could wrap the situation around their head, the twins started climbing onto the commander like little monkeys. Then they each snatched a meat buns like miniature bandits. All eyes in shock. Some dumbfounded, some amused. One narrowing as if to ask, "Whose children are these, with no manners?" Unfortunate to me, the meat bun Yen grabbed was the same one the man at the head of the table was also reaching for. His big hand froze midair, fingers 1 inch from her tiny fist. His armor was the signature crimson of the Imperial Army. Gold insignia on his uniform gleamed under the sun. His face, weather-hardened, sharp-boned, terrifyingly composed, was unmistakable. The Grand General Hanyang himself, the chief commander of all 4 army divisions of the Tang Empire. The Emperor's hammer. A living legend. And my kids, oh my God, did they just called him Papa? My mind went blank. My breath stopped. And there I stood, hollow-eyed and half-frozen, a single thought ringing in my skull like a temple bell. For one long, impossible second, no one moved. Men forged in war, who had seen 1,000 deaths, and roared 1,000 war cries, now silenced by 2 3-year-olds munching wetly on stolen bun. Then Yen looked up, cheeks puffed, mouth still full. Dia, she mumbled. Soy sauce smudged her pink cheeks. It's sweet. A thunderous laughter broke from among the general's men. But not Han himself. He didn't move, didn't even blink, because he was stupefied by what those toddlers had just called him. I stood across the street, watching with a bated breath, waiting to see what the Grand General Hanyang would do to my child. And then it happened. The Grand General, whose name made border tribes tremble, actually laughed. That sound rolled through the street, like thunder that had forgotten to be frightening. "Sweet, is it?" he said, picking up my daughter and placed her on his thigh. "Then eat, little puppies. The army doesn't fight on an empty stomach." Laughter burst from his men. One carried up Chocho to his thigh and opened a hard-boiled egg toward him. Another tore off a piece of duck drumstick. My children blinked up at them, uncertain whether they were in trouble, then took another bite, just in case it was all a dream. I found my feet again, and stumbled forward. "General, I'm so sorry. These children don't know better. They haven't eaten since." General Hanyang raised a hand, stopping me mid-sentence. He smiled. "Then, they shall eat now," he said simply, his voice carrying the quiet command of a man used to being obeyed. He looked at me then, truly looked, and something unreadable flickered behind his eyes. "Join me," he added. "Eat with the children." Looking toward his men, he kicked all of them to the next table, and called for new dishes to be added to the table. And for the first time in 2 years, I sat at a table where the bowls and plates were full. The soldiers kept eating, politely pretending I wasn't there. The twins sat on the general's lap, wrestling bites from food too big for their hands, their cheeks sticky with sauce. It made my heart ache to see them hadn't been that happy eating for a long while. Across the table, the general drank in silence. Even seated, he carried the weight of command. When his gaze finally met mine again, it wasn't unkind. They were measuring, like a man taking stock of his battlefield. I bowed my head. "We owe you a debt, General. I will repay." He cut me off again, with a wave of his hand again. "Feed them first. The Empire doesn't matter." That meal, my heartbeat returned to something resembling life. Warmth crept back into my belly. When the meal was done, I thanked the soldiers and prepared to flee. Before the universe invented a new humiliation for me. When I turned to leave, Chioccio, the brazen one, however, had other plans. He climbed onto the bench, tiny hands reaching for the last sesame pancake cooling on the plate. Dia, can I have this one? He asked innocently. Every sound in the courtyard died at the children's second mention of the word, Papa. Hanyang blinked once, twice. Then, astonishingly, he smiled. You'd better ask your real Dia, he said tenderly. Chioccio tilted his head, eyes wide with question. Your Dia, he said simply. Dia also likes this pancake. The soldiers choked. One spat tea through his nose. Another dropped the drumstick mid-bite. I assure you, General, they don't know better, I stammered. But the twins weren't finished. Dia coming home with us? Yen asked, eyes bright with hope. Dia no come home long time. I wanted the ground to swallow me whole. My hand flew to cover her little mouth. Yen, stop talking, I hissed, pleading, half dying. Hanyang's shoulders shook, either from suppressed laughter or divine mercy. That's very kind of you, he managed. But I have to guard the Empire gates tonight. Yen considered the general's words gravely, nodding like an adult. Then tomorrow, she asked. General Han looked up at me, eyes glinting with amusement. Tomorrow, he said, if the Empire allows. Yen clapped her sticky hands, perfectly satisfied, and said bye-bye, Dia. I bowed so low my forehead nearly met the ground. General, please disregard everything they. No harm done, he cut in. Children speak the truths the adults forget. I scooped the twins into my arms and fled with all the dignity panic would allow, praying the wind might take mercy and delete this entire morning from history. Chapter 3. That night, the house smelled of sesame and wormwood, ghosts of a meal too fine for us. Lingering still, I should have felt relieved, but a tight knot in my chest refused to loosen. Chioccio had drifted to dreamland. Yen was playing the straw doll I'd made. Yen, said I, why did you call the general Dia? Her lashes fluttered. For a moment, I thought she hadn't heard me. Then she sat up. Without a word, she slipped off the bed and padded across the floor. Stopping at the old cedar chest in the corner, she lifted the latch. Inside, neatly folded, lay what little I couldn't bear to sell. A set of battle-scarred armor gear. This, she said, her small finger jabbing the folded clothes. Dia's clothes. He wore this. My vision stilled. My mind instantly clicked. The recognition. The same metal gleam. The same proud line seen on General Han's armor this morning. My child, so sure, so pure, had linked her father to General Han. Oh heavens! My heart broke, like it had been stabbed repeatedly. I rushed to her, pressed her small head against my chest. How could I explain? That her real papa would never come home? How could I let her believe what wasn't true, without crushing it? No, my child, I whispered, the words shaking. That man isn't your Dia. Dia he has. He's far, far away now. She yawned, already drifting. Her small voice drowsily said, then ask Dia to come home quickly. Chapter 4. The next day, and the day after, steaming mantu, buns and vegetables started appearing at my doorstep. No message left in the food. Just the faint whiff I recognized was from the military mess kitchen, clinging to the cloth wrap. The twins immediately connected their mind to the one they called Papa. Dia sent it, they declared, eyes sparkling. I could only guess that their boldness was just toddlers craving a father figure. Soon, more soldiers lost their way. They conveniently lost their way delivering rice, salted turnips, even meat. At our door. I knew the sender. Could be none other than General Hanyang. He, of course, pretended nothing. When we passed him on the street, he merely inclined his head in polite acknowledgement. Nothing more. The first time my twins shot out from behind my legs across the street yelling, Dia. I swear I saw him choked mid-swallow at the public misidentification. Well, I mean, the whole nation knew he was still a bachelor. One very available. And coveted by not just Omega, even Beta ladies. What began as a single mistake spread, turning a single encounter into encounters with the S. But still, he kept acknowledging it, unfazed. wearing the false name like an honor. After that, it became routine. The twins would autopilot charged across the street toward him shouting dia dia, and he would exhale a resigned sigh murmuring, "Eh, my little munchkins," before scooping them up like a father starring in his own comedy show. His soldiers, who always trailed him, quickly grew accustomed to the strange, but endearing ritual of this new version of their peculiar general. Then I caught his stares. Stares that lingered too long to not noticed. The type that felt like crossing a border only known to Alpha and Omega existed. Stirring, unsettling, dangerous. And then there were more bump into. At the market, along the streets. He said he was duty. I got it, just as I told myself. These were nice coincidences. The space between us trembled, with everything unsaid. Chapter 5. Thanks to General Hanyang's special attention, my two chompers thrived. Their cheeks rounded, laughter shaking the house. The nights curled against me felt lighter. The excess barley flour General Han sent became my lifeline. I shaped them into my signature barley cakes and sold them on consignment to the city's goose houses. The sun, hammering down like molten brass, I hauled tray after tray, my shoulder raw from the ropes. Each sale was small, but it reclaimed a brick in the foundation of my independence. Because there was no knowing how long General Hanyang's grace would hold, or when I might be left to fend for myself again. I had just collected the payment when the twins shouted the smell of dia dia. The smell of what? I blinked, but they were already trotting ahead, the tail of their clothes fluttering behind them like sparrows' wings. Children, come back. The military barrack. The guards, trained to face enemy cavalry charges without flinching, looked as if they'd seen a ghost, when I and Omega barreled into an all-alpha liar. Inside, sunlight spilled across rows of soldiers in training. At the center knelt General Han himself, clad in full armor, gripping a practice stick. Facing him were my twins, tiny bodies, yet very determined, waving their short sticks like soldier, shouting in baby voice, "Yes, sir, yes." Left foot forward, General Han said, tone grave, "Don't swing so high, or you'll lose balance." And the twins would go, "Dia dia like this?" Once Chocho, overzealous, demonstrated a wild swing that nearly hit General's crotch. When I arrived, panting and mortified, my straw hat lost somewhere, my usual poise forgotten. Seeing me about to dish up a string of apology, he rose to meet my eyes. "Ah, so this is how they fight a battle," he said, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Messy, but very spirited. Soldiers around us, their jaws dropped to the floor. Their general had spoken more than 10 words. So never before. So out of character. Before I could scold the twins, the barracks horn blared, sharp, urgent, signaling an incoming courier. A rider appeared at the gate the next minute. He dismounted, scampered forward, and knelt before General Han. "From the North Front, General," the courier said, presenting a box, sealed with black wax, and bound in white ribbon. White, the color of mourning. Every soldier went silent. Heavy hearts suddenly filled everyone's heart. The barracks itself seemed to hold its breath. General Han's expression darkened, unreadable. Slowly, he turned to me and handed me the box, wordless. The wind carried the faint scent of parchment and iron. My spine felt chill. My heart dropped to my belly. Finally, he spoke, voice low, solemn. "I sent riders north to confirm the status of General Wu and his banner." Then he stopped, letting silence stretch. The silence enough to say it all. For I, myself, had seen similar boxes my Alpha had handed out to the families of fallen soldier. Today, I was the one standing here, receiving the box with white ribbon. After a long pause, he only managed to say, very slowly, very quietly, "I'm sorry for your loss." Chapter 6. The lamp burned low. The house was as quiet as a pin drop. Smell of wormwood incense lingered faintly. Yen Yen and Chocho had drifted to sleep, each clutching their doll. Outside, the cicadas and the nocturnal songbirds trilled, whispering as if nothing had changed. Inside, a brave heart had stretched thin, trembling on the verge of collapse. On the table, the black box lay. When the wax broke beneath my thumb, the name Wuxian bled across the scroll, like spilled ink. A folded red cap bore the dried, crusted stain of blood. A few scorched insignia. A silver clasp, the one I had fastened to his collar the day he left. Below it, a small bundle of folded letters, each addressed in his familiar handwriting. The top one was brittle around the edges. The ink faded from travel and time. Xian's handwriting was steady, neat, the kind that never wavered even in battle. I opened the first letter with trembling hands. Xiaojin, if this reaches you, it means I did not. But do know that my love is woven into the air you breathe. It will rise with the morning incense and rest where you lay your head. The world will keep turning, and I will always be near. But don't grieve too long, my love. You are never meant to fade with me. Eat, even when it feels tasteless. Feed our children. Laugh when you can. Find warmth again, even if not with me. That will be my eternal peace. The second letter was shorter. My two little forces of chaos. Know that every moment of your life, your first word, your first steps, made me a proud father. Do not feel lost. Live boldly, love freely, and always stay close to your mother. By the third, the lines had grown hurried. Ink blotched, as if written by firelight amid chaos. Xiaojin, if I don't return in 6 moons, that means I'm gone. Burn my armor. Don't let the world bury you with me. And the last, nothing but a smear of ink. The shape of my name dissolved halfway. I traced it with trembling fingers, as if touching that could call him back to me. I folded the letters carefully, like treasures, and pressed them to my chest. The words spoke to me like Xian was speaking to me right this moment. My tears fell, like rivers. My heart felt squeezed by invisible hands. Tears slipped soundlessly onto the paper, mingling with his words until I could no longer tell whose sorrow it was, his or mine. For a long time, I sat there, feeling the room breathe, the wax dripping from a dying lamp, the faint rustle of the twins' sleep whispers, the quiet sigh of the night. Outside the half-open window, a lone figure stood unmoving beneath the eaves. He didn't knock, didn't speak. I knew he was there. I knew he had been standing there all along, sharing the quiet moment of my sorrow. He just watched me. When I finally looked up, our eyes met, through the window's half-frame. I thought he would turn away, but he stayed. General Han, in plain clothes, his silhouette softened by moonlight, was sharing the space of my sorrow. For that single, suspended moment, there was no rank, no title, no distinction of alphas and omegas, only a man who had seen battlefields burn, yet could not bear the quiet ruin inside the house. Then he bowed his head, silent, and slipped into the darkness. Chapter 7. The next few days passed quietly, maybe too quietly. Hanyang noticed my absence. No slender figure carrying trays of barley cakes, darting through the marketplace at daybreak. No little tornadoes holding clipped tree branches as spears and sword, waving at him and shouting dia dia from across the street. The mornings just felt empty. By the 4th day, even his assistants noticed. General, it seems the street feels a little duller, without your little vendor friends, huh? Later, I learned from his assistant that General Han had been anxious and came to my house to check me out, located just about 2 lanes from the marketplace. Even behind tightly shut doors and windows, my peach blossom scent reached him. He immediately realized I was homebound, weathering my heat cycle. Double the guard on this street, he instructed his assistants quietly. No one enters this house without my leave. Send 2 Omega matrons to stand watch inside and help with the chores. They'll know what to do. Through chatting with the matrons, I learned that Hanyang came by every morning to check on me and my kids. The aunties laughed among themselves as they recounted the general's been acting weird. Each time he came to check his pack. Ha ha ha, he's been acting weird, flustered, like very unsure of himself, said one matron. And he looked strangely cute with that bunch of oregano herbs up his nose whenever he comes by, said another matron. Yeah, and he thinks we don't notice? The other matron replied. That boy has remarkable restraint, I give him that, considering he's a dominant alpha in his prime. The following week, I reappeared on the street, weaving through the bustling crowd with barley cake trays in hand. I knew I looked thinner, maybe even paler, but I felt alive. Maybe this was why my alpha insisted on not marking me. He believed, should he perished in battle, he wanted me to find a second spring sooner. Unbonded Omega, still a catch even for a widow. And bonded mates, usually never remarry for whole lifetime. And my alpha didn't want that. Thankful that I was not marked. My body usually recovered quickly after each heat cycle. My little tornadoes skipped beside me, hands gripping my robe. Why the ground yellow? Why cake so yummy? Where's Papa? Their endless questions tumbled out like tiny bells. Then they spotted him. Their newfound dia was across the street, barking orders. General froze, brow furrowed. Hands mid-gesture at the familiar call of dia from across the street. The sweet calling he hadn't heard for a full week. The call he'd been waiting for the whole of last week. When General Han's eyes landed on us, the man I'd pictured leading 10,000 riders into battlefields was now fully embarrassed, red-faced, fidgeting like a mountain tiger stuck in a puddle. I stifled a laugh. Should I wave? Pretend didn't see him? To save him predicament? Or point the twins at a roadkill for distraction? That evening, I invited Hanyang to dine with us, to thank him properly. The moment Hanyang appeared and stepped over the raised threshold, the twins bolted like unleashed puppies, shrieking a trailing dia, with the ah sound, stretched for a mile. Hanyang scooped them up like a hero returning from war. But only 2 seconds in, Yanyan's face crumpled and immediately launched a big cry. Twin tears are contagious. Once one cry, the other one naturally followed. Yanyan clung tighter. Dia is home, dia home, she said pitifully between hiccups. The man could deal with even a rain of archers' fire. The simple display of children's sorrow, yearning for their father's return, wrecked him 10 times more than anything he'd experienced. Chocho recovered first. A ball of energy and curiosity, he pulled the general toward the adjacent courtyard. Dia, come. I show you my worms. Out of the corner of my eye, as I set the dishes down, I caught Hanyang's gaze wandering through my unkempt house. His eyes lingered on the cracked columns, the deplorable courtyard. A flicker of sadness crossed his face. He must have seen what had once been a proud home, fit for a general's family, now barely holding together. Dinner was simple: shrimp dumplings broth, a whole steamed chicken, and a few pickled vegetables I'd stretched to seem plentiful. Chocho, Yanyan scolded suddenly, snatching her bowl. You stole my prawn again. I did not, her brother retorted, but I wanted to give it to Dia. The twins chattered nonstop, their energy filling every corner of the tiny room. I felt my face burn hearing them repeatedly and unrestrained calling Dia. At one point he couldn't help it. General, please ignore them calling you that. They just miss their father. Hanyang didn't look at me. Instead, had his gaze at the twins. No harm, he said, voice calm and deep. Let them think I am. I watched them chatted. I watched him smiled, and a terrifying realization crept in. The more time he spent with them, the more time he spent with me, the more I was falling for him. Later, the twins finally conk out in their bed. I tucked them in and slipped back to the main room. Hanyang had even done the last of the dishes like it was the most natural thing in the world. You don't have to, I said. You've done enough for one day, he replied, smiling faintly, setting the dishes down. He didn't leave. Instead, he lingered and made tea. I recognized the aroma instantly. It was the imperial-grade woolen black tea. Not mine. I certainly couldn't afford it. Its earthy scent rose, rich and familiar, stirring memories, when my alpha was still here, when such luxuries still had a place at our table. We sat on the wooden bench in the courtyard. Night wrapped around us, cool and heavy. The cicadas had quieted. Only the rustle of bamboo and the faint clink of porcelain filled the silence. When I looked up, he was already watching me. For a long while, neither of us spoke. Then his hand brushed mine. Just a touch, light as breath, but it felt like crossing a border I'd long forgotten existed. I didn't pull away. He leaned closer, just enough for his scent, cedarwood, and something distinctly him, to wrap around me. My pulse faltered. You deserve better, he whispered. I flinched. No one had ever said them that close. Why Why do you think that? I asked, fumbling for steadiness. His gaze didn't waver. Because they call me Dia, he said softly. And because I always protect what's mine. I froze. My heart slammed against my ribs. Yours? I breathed. Yes. Mine, he muttered, his lips curved. Faint. Dangerous. Almost cruel. You reached for me first, he murmured. And I accepted you. And them. The moonlight caught his eyes, bright and unyielding. His face was so close I could feel the warmth of his breath, the quiet steadiness of him. The space between us trembled, with everything unsaid. Chapter 8. Days blurred into weeks. Nights filled with dinners no longer for 3, but always 4, even at General Han's residence. Sometimes, by Lover's Lake. Sometimes, in the night market with a child perched on his shoulder. Or at the temple, the theater. We began to draw wandering eyes onto us. Their stares were soft but cut like daggers. Whispers soon slithered along the narrow streets like toxic smoke. What had been innocent and carefree now drew venomous attention. People started talking openly. The Alpha himself went to the Omega's house last night. Why the General even bother with a widowed Omega? That I seduced the General. That I flaunted myself disgraceful. Omegas sneered. Betas whispered about favoritism. And Alphas glared as if I'd stolen something forbidden. I kept my head down, cheeks burning. The twins tugged at my collar, babbling happily, blissfully oblivious to the poison surrounding us. Soon Hanyang's parents got wind of it. They stepped in to intervene, questioning why their son had rejected 21 arranged matches, only to end up choosing a widowed Omega, even to raising another Alpha's pups. The idea was unbearable to them. By the 4th moon, whispers had grown into open hostility. The Omega's Hanyang had previously rejected grew restless. Some even came to our door, scheming for ways to wedge themselves into what was slowly becoming us. Naturally, I was afraid. Even if the dignity of an Omega held no worth in this world, I still had to protect my children, for they were the descendants of a fallen hero who once bled for the Empire. They must not be dragged into this. I stopped accepting Hanyang's dinner invitations altogether. Hanyang, however, grew relentless. One afternoon, as I hurried home with the last of the groceries, he cornered me in the alley. The crowd gasped, their whispers swelling into a storm. Heat rose to my face. Shame and panic tangled inside me. Stop it. People are watching. Let them, Hanyang said smoothly, his eyes never leaving mine. Later, inside my shabby home, the air between us thickened. People say I'm making a fool of myself, I admitted, trembling. They told me to end this before it destroys my dignity. Do you want their acceptance? He asked quietly. Or mine? I don't want them to see. They'll see what I want them to see, he cut in, ice in his tone. And it works for me if they learn the truth. The truth. I laughed bitterly. That you, the Imperial General, ruin yourself for me? His gaze flickered, dangerous and unreadable. He stepped closer, heat radiating off him, forcing me to tilt my head up. You underestimate the worth of what's mine, he whispered. My chest stuttered. Stop saying that. I don't belong to you. You do. His eyes dropped to my lips. And soon they'll accept it. Accept what? He leaned close to my face and said, that you and your pups belong to me, under my protection. My breath caught. Why us? You could have any Omega. Why me? His pheromones wrapped over me, thick and intoxicating. His voice dropped, low and growling. Because I've claimed you. Because your pup calls me Dia. They reminded me, strength means nothing if isn't used to protect others. My heart slammed. But I'm a widow. Was. I already have children. Perfect. I need an heir. My mother complains endlessly. But their surname isn't yours. They can take mine. They already calling me Dia, as if they know who they belonged. His every word was fire to my ears. Intoxicating. And terrifying. My knees shook, fear twisting with a desperate, forbidden desire. What if I refuse? He closed the distance, his lips silencing me. His kiss was searing, demanding, breaking every wall I'd built. My body betrayed me. I melted against him, it softened, hungry, but tender, leaning into his warmth, answering his claim. My body burned, my Omega instincts twisting into a desperate ache. I clutched at his coat, gasping when his tongue slid into me, his grip on me tightened possessively. Suddenly, a squeal shattered the moment. I also want. The twins chimed in between us, clapping their tiny hands, pulling at the pants. Blissful in my storm, I forgot they were waiting near. We broke apart, breathless, lips swollen. My heart pounded. "You're impossible," I hissed angrily. Hanyang smirked, brushing a thumb along my lips. "And yet you kissed me back." Our first night together was not gentle. It was everything I hadn't realized I'd been starving for. His dominance, my surrender, our heat colliding, pheromones imbued in a fever that consumed reason. The world narrowed to the sound of my own breath breaking, to the taste of him, to the weight of his touch claiming what had long been hollow. When it was over, and the silence returned, I lay against his chest. My body was spent, but my heart light. The loneliness I had carried for years had finally loosened its grip. For the first time since my husband's death, I wasn't surviving alone. For the first time, I dared to believe my twins might grow up safe. And for the first time, I dared to believe in love again. The days that followed blurred together. The elders demanded answers. They demanded my shame. Hanyang gave them none. At every gathering, every challenge, his voice cut through like steel. Assuming his top alpha aura, he laid down his words like a law. The widow and his children are under my protection. Any who oppose it, oppose me. No one spoke after that. Chapter 9. Autumn came early that year. Golden ginkgo trees and crimson maple lined the city gates, dancing gently in the autumn breeze. Hanyang stood by the stables in plain riding robes. Stripped of the usual military uniform, he was still impossible to ignore. When I arrived with the twins perched both sides of my hip, he chuckled at my questioning face. Then he bowed slightly. "I thought a ride outside the walls might do us some good. The children deserve sunlight, and you deserve air that doesn't smell of the marketplace." I hesitated, out of habit more than doubt. But when the twins squealed, "Horsey, horsey," somewhere between their laughter and his gaze, I found myself smiling. "All right." Hanyang lifted us both onto his horse, his arm steady around my waist as the animal eased into a slow trot. His hand never lingered, never trespassed, yet they were firm and steady that like a promise or a vow. The city fell behind us. Vast fields unfurled, awash in gold and soft pinks, where tall weeds swayed like waves. Lulled by the breeze, the weeds taller even than most alphas. When we reached the riverside, the cherry petals floated across the water like drifting lanterns. Hanyang dismounted first, then reached up for me. For a moment, we simply stood there, hand in hand. The sound of the whispering weeds, the trickling river, composing nature's own subtle symphony. Turning to meet my eyes, he spoke low. "Minjin, I've walked among soldiers all my life, carrying the weight of the empire. If you don't despise a man whose life is worth less than his sword, I'd like to claim you as mine completely." I blinked. "General, call me Hanyang," he corrected softly. Then he added, "My assistant told me the almanac favors union today, so I speak not as a commander, but as a man who has found in you a home, and the very reason my days are worth living." The words caught in my throat. He took one slow step closer and held my hands in earnest, and said, "I can give you a life without fear, a roof that won't leak when it rains, my name to protect yours, my strength when you tire." His eyes softened, a handsome smile formed on his face. And for them, he glanced at the children, who were busy gathering petals nearby, to call me Dia Dia, for real. The wind picked up, carrying the crisp, earthy scent of early autumn between us. I didn't realize I was crying until he brushed a tear away with his thumb. My lips parted, but no words came, only the quiet tremor of yes held inside my chest. And then, a little voices piped up between us. "Dia Dia are coming home now. Dia Dia going to sleep on Mama's bed now." Time stopped. I froze. Hanyang froze. We blinked. "Children," I groaned, covering my tomato face, wishing the ground open up swallow me whole. Hanyang bent down, scooping them up with one arm. "Sure, Sergeant Puppies. Your order is my command." With that, the stars of 4 hearts under the skies of the Tang Empire had been rewritten. Hi there. Thank you for listening in. Please share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us which part resonated with you most. Or what situation of chaos would you like us to draw up next as your point of reference?